For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services. Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Well, E3 is approaching again, I think for realsies this year, 2021. It's going to be a digital-only event, but for most of us, that's not going to change much, since we just enjoy all the announcements and press events and stuff from the comfort of our own homes. So I am looking forward to all the news that might come out, not only of the E3 event itself, but just kind of E3 season in general. Last year, I tried, not knowing how it was going to be spread out and stuff, I tried to just kind of cover and react to a bunch of stuff that ended up being, frankly, a bit much for me. So I am moving a lot of my reactions to maybe stuff that I don't feel like is quite worth making a video about. I'm going to be moving that to the Christian Geek Central podcast. So whenever there's stuff that you're wondering how I might be reacting to it in terms of video game news going on this summer, if you don't see a video on it, check in with the Christian Geek Central podcast, because I may be doing some exclusive reactions to a few things here and there throughout the summer. Now, I have got no special insight or info. I'm not a games industry analyst, even remotely, but oddly enough, a number of my past wish list items have come true, so we will see what happens this year as I present now my jaded predictions and selfish, unrealistic wish lists for E3 2021 and the surrounding happenings in the games industry. Let's see here, starting with Capcom. My jaded prediction for Capcom is that we will get more Monster Hunter stuff that's exclusive to Nintendo. I was bummed when Monster Hunter Rise came exclusively to the Nintendo Switch, and before that, Monster Hunter Ultimate something or other jigger came just to the Switch, and I'm like, oh, come on. Now, honestly, I have played Monster Hunter World and Iceborne almost to death. I mean, to the point where like, okay, yes, I think I'm done with this gameplay for a while. So I'm not starving really for another Monster Hunter experience, because when I want more Monster Hunter, I'll go back to the Monster Hunter I have already not finished, despite having put over 600 hours into it already. But even so, it would just be nice to know that these Monster Hunter experiences that are coming exclusively to the Switch would move out to other platforms like PlayStation and Xbox One. So my first wish for Capcom is that we'll get a Monster Hunter Ultimate and or Monster Hunter Rise port to, well, PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 selfishly, but I mean on behalf of Xbox players, to Xbox consoles as well. And then my only other wish for Capcom this year is that we get a Dragon's Dogma sequel announcement. There was a leak, so I mean it's gonna happen, but I don't think it's been officially announced yet. So I'd like an official announcement and reveal of the sequel to Dragon's Dogma, and also some gameplay, or at least some gameplay info. Even if we don't get a release date or anything, it would be cool to see something of this game and what it's going to be. I did enjoy some of Dragon's Dogma. Ultimately, I just didn't like how cumbersome it was to move around and to travel in that world, but there was a number of things I really liked. If they could just take care of the issues I had with how slow your character moves around the world, and, you know, they did fix some fast travel stuff, but if they could fix that, that just how slowly your character moves around the environment in the world, there would be a lot in that game I think I would enjoy. So I'm really looking forward to see what they do with a sequel. Next up, my jaded predictions and just one wish for EA, Electronic Arts. I think it's jaded prediction number one, we're going to get something Star Wars. Just a reminder from EA, hey, even though we're not exclusively making them, we do still make Star Wars games. You know, they had the Star Wars license exclusively for I think about 10 years, and it's coming to a close now, and we've already gotten announcements from other studios and companies that are making Star Wars video games. EA, in the view of many gamers and pundits, did not make good use of that license, and a lot of people were bummed that it was kind of like stuck on EA as a publisher. But I think they're still going to want to take advantage of the fact that they are still able to make Star Wars games, and so I think that they're gonna want to do something Star Wars. I don't know what, maybe a mobile thing or something. My second jaded prediction for EA is that we'll get some kind of promo for the next expansion or iteration of Sims that is going to, in a way that just is not appropriate for a game, or it expects or claims too much from a game, going to be speaking to healing emotional issues related to COVID. I think that there was just some like identity stuff, and some, yeah. I think they're going to give too much credit and claim too much in a subtle way. I think it'll be done in a way that seems tasteful in many respects, but I just think that they're going to talk about the power of how Sims has helped people deal with COVID and stuff like that, and I don't want to discount that video games can be useful, but I think the vibe that it's going to give off is going to be like, make me feel like, okay, it is just a video game. You know? My third jaded prediction is that they're going to, in their presentation, whatever it looks like, and actually I think EA isn't doing their thing until July, but their presentation is going to shoot for a kind of homegrown feeling of solidarity related to COVID. They'll go for this webcam type, people talking in webcams that is, by the time we get to it, going to feel out of date or contrived or forced, like they're going for something that feels more personable than it actually is. But I don't know. I think I'm being a little too hard on EA. They have been making some nice course corrections in some small ways in recent years, but I just got a feeling that maybe something's going to come across in a way where they're going for something homegrown and humble and transparent and authentic, but we'll be able to see the puppet strings in maybe some glaring way. I don't know. We'll see. My final jaded prediction for EA is that we'll get Dragon Age 4 videos that actually lack gameplay. It'll be some kind of CG thing that will not give me any reason to look forward to this game, because really what I care about is what's the gameplay like? What are you doing with gameplay? So I don't think we're going to see any gameplay for Dragon Age 4, but I think we'll probably see something for Dragon Age 4 because they'll want to remind us, hey, Dragon Age 4, it's a thing, it's going to happen. And remember how much you liked some of our old games like Dragon Age? Well, now here's a fourth one. But my only wish for EA is really just, I'm in such a jaded place with EA these days and have been for a few years, just like anything of interest to me and immediate actions that build trust. Instead of lots of talk, they've kind of given us some talk in past years about things that they're going to do and how they're listening to players and things like that. And it would just be neat to see them do something like, hey, we're doing this today. This is active as of today, this update or this new game or whatever, some kind of action. I don't know what that would be, but something that would just make me, I guess, continue to feel better about EA, because I'm not as jaded toward EA as I was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Still pretty jaded. EA is an interesting company. We'll see what happens. Microsoft has really won me back over the last 12 months, especially with the purchase of basically every notable Western RPG studio that exists. They basically own the genre now. It's crazy. So it's likely only a matter, it is, I think, in my mind, only a matter of when I buy a Series X, because I'm actively trying to acquire one now. My first wish, I'll just say, is that Avowed, this is the Skyrim-like, the Elder Scrolls-y looking first-person RPG, that they teased last year, that Avowed will be featured significantly with a 2022 release date, 2022. They might have said what the release date was going to be last time, and it might be further out than, I can't remember. But whatever they said before, I'm ignorant, and so anything is possible in my mind. Avowed featured 2022 release date. Here's one that I don't know we have any reason to expect, but it is a wish of mine, and that is that Bard's Tale 5 would be announced. I really enjoyed the director's cut of Bard's Tale 4. Microsoft owns the studio that made that game. I believe it's In Exile. I could be wrong. but it was one of my favorite games the year it came out on PlayStation 4, and I would love to hear an announcement that says, hey, no, we're not done with this series, we are continuing, and it's going to be coming to consoles. So yeah, even not hearing that news, but just know that Bard's Tale 5 is going to exist. It's in development. Would be really really cool for me after how much I enjoyed the fourth one. My third wish is that we'll get a release window for Fable 4, which was announced, but I'd love to get a release window and gameplay improvements that are featured. There was ultimately some stuff with the gameplay, I won't get into it now, that just didn't really keep me hooked to even the end of Fable 2, and I never really touched Fable 3, and I would love to find myself enjoying a Fable RPG, because I mean, there are a number of things I really did enjoy about what I did play of Fable 2, and so many people have enjoyed those games. I would love to count myself among them, beginning with Fable 4. My jaded prediction, I do have one more wish I'll come back to, but my jaded prediction is that Starfield will be revealed. We already know that Bethesda and Microsoft are sharing one single event. So my jaded prediction is that Starfield will be revealed for 2021. Right now the scuttlebutt is that it's probably coming in 2022, but they are still aiming for 2021. So it'll be revealed for 2021 with exclusive features. This is my jaded prediction. Exclusive features that cause the Series X to be in dramatically increased demand, even more so than it is now, creating increased frustration for millions of gamers trying to get one, including myself. My final wish for Microsoft, I don't know how they would pull this off, but I would just love them to announce in a way that is true, that we all believe and is true. They will announce a return to normalcy in Series X, Xbox Series X stock availability starting now. I don't know how they would pull it off. They did say a while back that stock would not, become more available until at least June. There are some publications online that are thinking like, okay, so starting in June things are going to be back to normal. But what I remember reading was they said it's going to be bad until at least June. And recent reports from the availability of the components needed for both of the modern current consoles indicate that those shortages are going to continue into 2022. And so unless they got their hands on a batch, a huge batch, prior to that announcement being made, I don't see how it's going to happen. But would love, unrealistically, for that wish to come true. Okay, Bethesda. Yes, they are sharing an event with Microsoft, but I have wishes and jaded predictions. Well, just one jaded prediction and plenty of wishes that are very Bethesda-focused. So I got to spend a little extra time here on Bethesda. My only jaded wish, or jaded prediction, for Bethesda is that we will get a Skyrim 10-year anniversary. That's this November is the 10-year anniversary of Skyrim. Okay, just feel old with me for a second. There will be a Skyrim 10-year anniversary edition that will be announced, and it will be a very underwhelming prospect. I don't know. There would be, I mean, they've already did a special edition for PlayStation 4. Maybe they'll do like one for PS5 and Xbox Series X, but I don't know what they would do except just to like make an official port, but it's not going to have any really noticeable improvements. There's just going to be something that I suspect jadedly they will announce that will be meant to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Skyrim, but it's just going to feel like that's it. That's all you're doing for the 10-year anniversary of Skyrim. This is such a huge, huge game in gaming culture, in the history of video games publishing, and that's all you're going to do for the 10-year anniversary. I think it's going to be something like that. Okay, my first wish for Bethesda is that Starfield will be revealed for 2021. Yes, that was also my jaded prediction, but I would be really excited, even though it would probably mean it's going to for sure get delayed. My next wish for Bethesda is that Wolfenstein 3 will get a 2022 or earlier release window with a story teaser trailer. I don't think we're going to see gameplay, but just some kind of story teaser. I mean, that's the thing I'm most curious about, is when is this going to take place compared to, say, Youngblood, which took place when BJ's daughters are they're like 20-somethings, So there's obviously a huge time jump there from 2 to Youngblood. So does 3 take place before Youngblood or after Youngblood? And so I haven't even finished Youngblood yet, so I don't even know what the potential might be there. But yeah, Wolfenstein 3, 2022 or early release window with story teaser. My next wish is that this November, the 10-year anniversary for Skyrim, we will get Skyrim New Vegas. I've talked about this, has been on my list of E3 wishes since 2015. I still want it. Dang it, I still want it. And by Skyrim New Vegas, if you don't know, what I mean is a new campaign made in the Skyrim engine. That's, you know, they can farm it out to some other developer. I don't care. I know they're busy making the next thing. I want them busy making the next thing. But once upon a time, Obsidian made a great Fallout game in Fallout New Vegas, just using the Fallout 3 engine basically and making some tweaks and having some fun with it. They should have done this years ago with the Skyrim engine. People would have eaten it up. I would have eaten it up. So I want that, or I want a partnership announced with the Skywind modders. I really don't think this is going to happen, but maybe someday. They're so supportive of mods over at Bethesda and at Microsoft that if they could somehow help the modders of Skywind. What the crap is this? I'm talking about video games. I don't have time for this thing that it's urgently reminding me of. I should probably make a little bit of time after this. So yeah, it's some kind of partnership that will help that modding project move forward and basically get Morrowind into the Skyrim engine and playable, because that would give me another Elder Scrolls experience. I just can't bring myself to go back and play Morrowind in the forms that it's available. That's another story. I won't get into that now. You can object in the comments if you want to tell me all the reasons why I should want to do that. But anyway, yeah, that would be really cool. And then finally, my final wish, Unrealistic, is free private servers for Fallout 76. Right now they are paid private servers. I don't want to play that game online. They're adding more things to make it single-player appealing, and that's great, but I don't want to play online. I don't want to play with other people. I just want more Fallout. So free private servers, the removal of the PlayStation Plus requirement for solo play, basically what they did with Conan Exiles, where it's totally meant to be played multiplayer, but you can just make your console your own little server, your own little world. You can change the rules for how your own little world behaves, have your own little adventures in your own little world. I had a lot of fun playing around in Conan Exiles all by my lonesome with all the options that they gave me, and I would like that option available for Fallout 76. Ubisoft has really become one of my favorite publishers these days. For a number of years now, the Far Cry series and Ghost Recon Wildlands are some of my favorite games of all time. I also really like Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey. I actually have what I want from them right now, though. It's kind of amazing to say. I'm not hungry for anything Ubisoft right now, because I have so much more fun that I could still get out of Wildlands or Ghost Recon Breakpoint, excuse me, and also still Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You know, there's so much fun that I have not finished extracting from those games. So I'm not hungry for it. Well, we did get an announcement for Far Cry 6, which was originally going to be on my wish list here, but we already got the announcement. We've gotten some gameplay and a release date, so I don't need anything more from them. So, Jaded prediction number one is that regarding Beyond Good and Evil 2, we're either going to get nothing, just crickets on that one, or we'll get a CG trailer, just another CG trailer, that will feature more talking animals. And I'm not a fan of talking animals, so that's why I call this a Jaded prediction. I think for other people that would be wonderful and joyous to get a CG trailer, well, maybe not a CG trailer, but to see more talking animals. And get some gameplay would be nice. But anyway, my second Jaded prediction is that we will get a Star Wars game tease. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but I would love to get a cool open world Star Wars game from Ubisoft, and reportedly we are going to get an open world Star Wars Ubisoft game. But I think the reveal for this will be a tease that indicates it's going to be too light at heart or kid-friendly. Star Wars can be presented in a lot of different ways with a lot of different tones, and I think Ubisoft is going to have a cartoon. This is my Jaded prediction. It's going to have a cartoony vibe for it, a kid-friendly vibe, maybe going in the direction of Immortals Phoenix Rising kind of cartooniness. I don't know. It's going to be something like, oh man, so close. I wanted to want this game, but I don't. My first wish, and this has been on my wish list since 2017, is that they will announce or tease a new open world franchise or game based on the Terminator. Frankly, I want to play as the Terminator, and I don't want it to just be in that world. I want to play as the Terminator. You think about a lot of these open world, city-based open world games, Ghost Recon Wildlands and Far Cry and stuff. What are you doing? You're going around the open world. It's like, go here, kill this person. That's what the Terminator does. You steal cars. You, like, with a cold heart, have no reaction to the people's lives you're impacting as you are trying to get to your target. That is like every open world city, open city, action game. Just let me be the Terminator now. I'm already saying get out every time that I steal somebody's car in one of these games. Just let me be the Terminator. They've already done some work with that intellectual property before, so I think that increasingly this is not a psychotic leap in logic of what could be possible. So, yeah, we'll see. And then my final wish. This is a big one. And I think that it's more possible now that they've made this game Immortals Fenyx Rising, which is a fantasy game, but with a kiddie kind of cartoony aesthetic. What I want is what I'll call AC D&D, Assassin's Creed D&D. More and more of the Assassin's Creed games have been turning into fantasy third-person action games, introducing some fantasy. You look at some of the special moves and abilities that you can upgrade in your upgrade tree in Assassin's Creed Odyssey in particular. They're getting more flashy and magical looking. It's not a huge leap for me to think, I want a serious toned, serious visual aesthetic game that is in a full-on D&D or D&D-ish fantasy world. And, gosh, I know they're not used to making this type of game. I would love to be able to play a full-on wizard class in that type of game, but even for now, just to get the foot in the door, fine. If it has to be an assassin or that kind of sneaky shooty, whatever kind of person, like in Ghost Recon and Far Cry and kind of what their wheelhouse currently is, fine. Just put it in a world that's full-on serious fantasy. Oh, Ubisoft. I would really, really love that. Square Enix. I've recently gotten big time back into like Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy 15. I've been like in a Final Fantasy zone lately for reasons I can't quite articulate in a brief amount of time. But my jaded prediction for Square Enix is that we'll get a Final Fantasy 16 trailer, just a trailer only, which we already got a trailer I think last year, with anime-style voice acting. It's just going to be not really anything substantive more being revealed. That's a jaded prediction. I actually suspect we'll get more than that. My wish is that we'll get a 2022 release window, at least, for Final Fantasy 16, and a combat systems demo. I really want to know what this thing plays like compared to Final Fantasy 15, which the series has more and more over the years gone in the direction of action, and I'm not going to get what I really want, which is a totally turn-based, not even the active time battle system, because actually, ironically, I think the active time battle system has slowed down gameplay as you wait for those meters to fill up. I won't get into that. But I think a snappy, pure turn-based would be awesome, but I'm not going to get that. An optional mode of that would be super cool, but no, something maybe real-time with pause would be great, or I don't know, something a little bit more involved than Final Fantasy 15 was. But something with a cool combat system that brings magic really fully back into it. It was largely absent in terms of diversity, certainly, in Final Fantasy 15. And I just want some combat systems reveal that's going to appeal to me as more of a classic Final Fantasy fan. That would be really awesome. And then my final wish for, or my only other wish for Square Enix is that we get some remaster of a classic RPG, I don't know what, but something, and a release date, both of which that will be enticing and exciting to me. And, you know, there's a lot still that they could do. They could do something with the Chrono Trigger intellectual property. There's still some Final Fantasy games like 6 or 5 that they could announce something cool with. I mean, who knows? So, yeah, it wouldn't be too hard to fulfill that wish. The PC gaming show, this is a show I've been increasingly interested in and looking forward to each year. I'm not really a PC gamer except for a few experiences not found on consoles that my PC can still run. But this show has become increasingly console player relevant because it will very often now feature games that are also coming to console. So I actually have no jaded predictions for the PC gaming show. I'm increasingly enjoying this event. My first wish is that it be a pre-made digital show that plays to the strengths of the hosts. I felt like they did that last year, where in previous years they weren't really playing to the strengths of the hosting talent that they had. But last year I feel like they really played up the strengths, minimized the weaknesses, and it kept pretty tight with like all killer, no filler type of content. So I just would love to see that again. My second wish would be that they cover single-player games of interest to me that will also be coming to console, which I think that's very possible, given the last 1 or 2 years, as well as PC exclusive games with low enough system requirements that my PC will still run and that have Gamepad functionality built in. My final wish for the PC gaming show is indications that the gap is getting continually smaller between PC and console gaming. And I think a great start, this is a wish that's been on my wish list for a few years now, would be an increasing trend for Gamepad user interfaces to be included as a standard feature in PC games normally made with keyboard and mouse in mind. So that those of us who prefer Gamepad and just really at the end of a workday being on mouse and keyboard are just done with that interface and just want to kick back with a gamepad, can maybe explore more of what the PC as a platform has to offer. Okay, now I'm going to talk about Nintendo. I forgot to mention in the video, but this part's about Nintendo. My jaded prediction and wish are kind of repeats, I think, from previous years. I haven't bought a Nintendo home console since the Super Nintendo, except to get a Wii for our two boys years ago. You know, the cute, family-friendly aesthetic of first-party Nintendo games are just not my thing, despite the fact that they really know how to make games with a whole lot of polish. Just their exclusive IP, which is what they build their business around, just don't appeal to me. My jaded prediction is that their Nintendo Direct event will largely focus on one or more cute Nintendo IPs that don't interest me. And my wish, again, is that they change their plans for legacy games. They're older console games, which right now you can get in a limited, I think even an unpredictable fashion through a subscription service that they kind of phase in and out of or something. I don't know. Anyway, I just want to be able to buy any past Nintendo generation hardware game on the Switch eShop. My son owns a Switch. I don't even have a Switch, but if they made that a thing where it's like, hey, any game that came out on a past Nintendo console you can get. I know that's a big ask. That's a huge ask. But, man, if they could do that or even something large, a big step in that direction, it could mean an insta-buy for me getting a Switch. Well, no, I'm saving up for a Series X, but it could definitely have my eye on Nintendo again. Sony is a company that obviously I'm interested in, as I'm primarily a PlayStation gamer these days, although that may be changing in the not-too-distant future. Yeah, they've been top dog, and it seems like increasingly listening less to their player base and what their players kind of want and would like to, and they can afford to do that as top dog, but we'll see how long that lasts. And it just seems to be what happens to these companies when they're really, really successful, and then eventually their competition kind of sneaks up from behind them and gives players what they want, and it just kind of goes back and forth. We'll see if that's what's going to be happening. My jaded prediction is that they will show increasing signs of disinterest in their legacy library. I'm talking about their PlayStation 1 through PlayStation 3 games, their PSP games, their PlayStation Vita games. As you may or may not know, they announced that the PlayStation 3, PSP, and PS Vita stores would be closing this summer so that people would no longer be able to buy games on those digital storefronts. After fans expressed outrage and uproar, they backtracked and said, okay, we'll keep Vita and PS3 going. PSP is still going to shut down in early July. And so, they just seem to not be connected and understand, what their fans are interested in. So I think my jaded prediction is that they're going to show increasing signs. They're going to continue to get away with as much as they can without ticking off their player base. And Jim Ryan, the new head honcho in recent 1 or 2 years, I guess, of PlayStation, is going to say something that further erodes any trust that he is prioritizing or aware of even learning what players want. That's been a bit of a bummer to see happening in some of the things that he's said in the last couple of years. Basically coming out at one point and saying, yeah, nobody wants to play old games. Like, oh man, really? So let's see here. My second jaded prediction is that Horizon Forbidden West will get a big focus. Now, they already got a focus. They did a state of play on Horizon Forbidden West, but I'm kind of wondering if something else is going to come out of Horizon Forbidden West, maybe a story-focused event that will indicate that the atheistic themes of the first game will be retreaded here, along with this continuing anti-theistic chip on Aloy's shoulder. That made her a protagonist that was hard for me to like in the first game. I'm hoping that we will move beyond kind of hammering that dead horse in this second game, but we'll see. My first wish is that they'll capitalize on their generational library, on their legacy games. I would love PS2 disc-based backwards compatibility, so I can pop in a PS2 disc and it works. I know that's totally unrealistic. I would at least like what I would call PS TV functionality. The PlayStation TV, even though it was unsuccessful, went in and out of markets, really hard to get your hands on one now, was able to play PlayStation Vita games and PSP games, and so many PlayStation 1 classics were available on the PSP, are still available to buy on the PSP for a very limited time. I'm not sure if you'll be able to buy them anymore on the Vita, which can play PSP games, or I don't know what the deal is with the storefronts there. I'm going to see if I can figure that out. But there's just through that functionality on the PlayStation TV, on the PSP, on the Vita, you could play a lot of these classic PlayStation 1 games. And outside of those consoles, you can't. On the PS4, on the PS5, you cannot play those same classics that you can play on the PS3, on the Vita, on the PSP. And so to get that functionality, which should just be a matter of emulation, would be fantastic. Would love for that wish to come true. And my final wish is that there be, this is a kind of a combo wish, one big interesting two-pater announcement that's exclusively for PS5 and PS4, and one that's only on PS5. And that's not because I'm a snob and I'm like, haha, I have a PS5, I don't care about PS4 owners anymore. No, the reason I would want something that's really interesting to me that's on PS5 is because if it's only made for PS5, it's more likely to be able to do some things that can only be done on PS5 and really move gameplay forward in some interesting ways. So that's kind of my thinking there. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And now really quickly, I'll look at my notes here for just general game wishes. So there's all kinds of third parties that don't have their own showcases or that may surprise us and have their own showcase pop up at some point that I would love to have games from. I want a new Bioshock 4 story teaser of some kind. That's been a wish since 2015. I don't think we're going to get a gameplay thing, but some kind of story, some indication of the setting would be awesome. I would love Singularity 2. It's been on my wish list since 2015. There was a tweet from one of the developers of the original Singularity years ago, I think back in 2015, that said, going back to Katorga 12, and then we've not heard anything since then. So I would love to hear news of a Singularity 2. I'd love a single-player Justice League / DC Universe action RPG. That's been on my list since 2015. Specifically an open-world, open-city style game. Like something in the Saints Row engine would be awesome. Suicide Squad and the announcement for that does not count, although I'm very interested in what that game is going to be. I'm almost certainly going to give it a try. But I would love, to be in the DC Universe, not in an MMO, and to play as some of the characters I love, or to make my own character and inhabit that universe in open world gameplay. Man, I would really love that. Let's see here. Since 2018, we've been hearing about this game called Atomic Heart, which looks very much inspired by Bioshock. The scuttlebutt is that we're going to get more, and I think maybe even a release date or release window this E3 season. And so I would love to get more info, a lot more info about the mechanics of the gameplay, and a 2021 release date for consoles. That'd be awesome. I'd love a Two Worlds 3 tease or reveal. This has been on my list for a couple of years. Supposedly they have been in development on this game, and I think they even said at one point it was going to be releasing in 2021 or something. I don't know if that's still even possible. So many games have been pushed back because of COVID, but so Two Worlds 3 or some other open world fantasy RPG where you can play as a dedicated Magic user. If you think about it, that's much more rare than you might think at a glance. There's a massive Skyrim-shaped hole in the industry that Bethesda is not going to be filling anytime soon, and I want someone to swoop in with something that looks really promising, releasing in 2021 or the first half of 2022. I think Avowed could certainly qualify as that, but I still want more, even more than we're already probably going to get with Avowed. I would like Symphony-like Castlevania games collected on PlayStation 4. Man, I would really, really love for that to happen. They've been stranded for so long on Nintendo handheld platforms. Be really cool to see them come to modern consoles. I'd love consumer demos to return this year. I think that's already actually been confirmed, so we won't count that as one of my wishes. And I want THQ Nordic, who's been buying up game studios and properties for years and is working on a ton, to just leave a huge crater of WoW at E3 this year. They are having some kind of an event. I think it might even be combined with some other showcase. I can't remember. They got something going on. And I just want a huge WoW THQ Nordic bomb to go off and get me really leaning forward about the games that they're going to be releasing in the next 6 to 12 months. And finally, something appealing that's available, appealing to me, of course. Not to you. I don't care about you. No. No, appealing to all kinds of gamers, but selfishly, of course, me. Available now! I love it when they do that. And this this cool thing we're telling you about you didn't know about before is available now. So that would be fun. So yeah, I guess in summary, I do always like to try and keep my expectations in check, especially in a year like this one where so many games have been delayed. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes, what games have been canceled, what games are going to be talked about that actually are not near as far along as their vertical slice would seem to indicate. Who knows what's going to happen? They get canceled or not released. They become extremely disappointing. We had Cyberpunk 2077 this last year, so I think that E3 and events like it can be enjoyed as a celebration and a representation of the gaming industry and what developers are aiming for, the ideals that they're aiming for. But, we don't want to set our hopes for happiness there. The more hyped we get, the more we set ourselves up for anger, for frustration, for disappointment, for impulse buys that we regret and that make us angry and disappointed, 1 John 2:15 through 17 in the ESV says, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him." So we've kind of replaced, when we're loving the world, we've replaced the love of the Father with the love of the world. "For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride and possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away, along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever." And I love this passage from Ecclesiastes 1, verses 8 through 11. It just says, "All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing." We just have this constant appetite for what's new and cool, and and we can't ever be satisfied by trying to fill up our ears with exciting things, fill up our eyes with exciting things. He goes on to say, "What has been is what will be. And what has been done is what will be done. And there's nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, 'See, this is new'? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after." So today's new hotness is tomorrow's been there, done that, leaving us looking for the next fix, The things that we enjoy, they ultimately fade, they get old. God does not change. He's the source of all good things, and he is the only good that doesn't himself fade, the ultimate source of all enjoyment. James 1:17 in the ESV says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there's no variation or shadow due to change. I've been meditating for a long time, almost every day during my quiet time, on Psalm 16. There's just something in it every day for me to meditate on. I'll get to verse 11 in a second, but just before I was recording here, I saw verse 4 in there, Psalm 16:4. It says, the sorrows of those who run after another God shall multiply. And when we pursue things of the world and kind of make them the thing that we're most into, the thing that we're most focused on, the thing that we're most prioritizing, we are worshiping those things. Worship is essentially, if you look at the Hebrew word, it's a prioritizing of something else. It's a bowing of ourselves. It's a lessening of ourselves in order to prioritize something else. And so if we are just dedicating ourselves to something in an intense way and prioritizing above everything else, that's the biblical concept of worship. So it says, the sorrows of those who run after another God shall multiply. And I think we can make a God, at least in principle, not literally, but in principle, we can make a God out of these things that we enjoy. And what the principle being taught here is that the sorrows of those who run after things that they worship other than God will multiply. And that's so true, because these things just ultimately disappoint. They ultimately leave us just wanting more, leaving us feeling empty, leaving us saying, oh, it's over. Is this it? Is this all there is? And our sense of contentment in life just goes up and down with our sense of hype and our sense of whatever's cool and new that can give us pleasure and fun, And so the psalmist, after that, makes the dedicating statement, their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out or take their names on my lips. I'm not going to engage in that. I'm not. And so what the challenge for me is, Peter, do not engage in the kind of hype which almost by nature, hype leads us to be putting our hope in these transient things that come and go and are limited in their ability to give us pleasure and any kind of fulfillment. And finally, in verse 16, in verse 11 of Psalm 16, he says, to God, you make known to me the path of life. And the idea of life here is not just like eternal life, it includes that, but it's also just the vibrancy, the fullness of true life that can be lived now as well. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. God is the ultimate source of fulfillment. We're going to finally complete this incomplete reunion that we have as those who have been made right with God because of what Jesus has done on our behalf that we could not do for ourselves. That reunion will be complete one day, and we will know complete, full, unfading fulfillment and enjoyment, excitement that will never fade, that will never end. And that's what we have to put our hope in, and that's a whole lot better than what these video game guys are scrambling to put together for us. All right. That's all I have for now. Would love to get any of your thoughts or reactions in the comments below. Like I said, stay tuned for more E3 and video game news related coverage on the YouTube channel, and for more that probably won't hit the YouTube channel at the Christian Geek Central podcast. I hope you'll join me there soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. The Christian Geek Central podcast is the longest-running podcast for Christian geeks with over 600 weekly episodes and counting, featuring audio versions of much of the same content you'll find here, plus exclusive content including weekly news updates from the creators of Christian comics, novels, and video games, debriefing and commentary about what I've been playing, reading, and watching, and my expanded responses to your comments and questions via YouTube, email, or the Christian Geek Central forums. And now, with timestamps, so you can jump straight to the segments you want to hear most. Get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services, and enjoy one more way you can geek out and seek the truth.